Well, welcome to Theodore Roosevelt National Park, tucked away in the west side of North Dakota. We're going to go inside and see why Teddy Roosevelt just happened to love this place. He came out here in about 1883 and spent about $14,000 to buy up a ranch, started some cattle ranching, some things that just didn't quite work out. But in the meantime, he fell in love with this area and really had the foreknowledge to realize how valuable our wilderness is. So he was more or less the father of our national parks and conservation. So we're going to take a look inside Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Well, we got up early in the morning in Dickinson, where we were staying, and drove over on I-94 and pulled into the south part of the park. Our America the Beautiful Pass, our senior pass, saved us $30, and I would highly recommend it. It has more than paid for itself. But the visitor center is located right by the gate, so it's not a far drive. So I'd recommend stopping here and checking things out first. Well, we're here at the visitor center, the main visitor center at the south section of the park. This south unit here of Theodore Roosevelt's National Park is the main entrance. There's also a north unit and the Elkhorn Ranch unit, which we'll go to later. Let's take a look inside the visitor center and see what they have. Debbie's got to get her passport. We'll get some information. The visitor center is open from 9 to about 4:30 every day of the week, but check the website just to make sure. They're closed for holidays and winter hours. You never know, may change. But inside you'll find ranger information. They're happy to help you and talk to you about what's there in the trails, as well as an exhibit and museum of Teddy Roosevelt's personal items and things they've found around the ranch. There's a short movie and the other things that you can watch, but it's a great place for information. The really neat thing about Theodore Roosevelt during his time was that during his mid-20s, he would go between New York and come out here to North Dakota to his ranches and spend a lot of time. He lived out here in a cabin, and we're going to go at the Elkhorn Ranch. He was our 26th president, and because of just the conservation and the love of the land, we owe so much to him about it that he established more than 230 million acres of land as national parks and forest and monuments and wildlife service. So he was really one of the biggest founders of the park services, and we owe most of all our national parks to the beginnings of his career and his presidency. And he said that he would have never been president had it not been for this ranch in North Dakota that he just loved spending time at. The peacefulness, the quiet, it's just beautiful country. So we'll take a look inside this cabin. It's just kind of an idea of how he lived before we go out to the Elkhorn Ranch. And we're talking late 1800s here, so it would have been, primitive. But imagine, the solitude, the wildlife. It's been pretty fascinating. We'll go back inside the visitor center and look around just a little bit more. They've got a video there to show information before we take off and see the park. What's really neat is inside the visitor center, they actually have Teddy Roosevelt's weapons that he used on the range. Here's his Winchester rifle, his triple barrel shotgun. I mean, this is from 1876. All the weapons that he used to hunt with on his ranch. Bear and buffalo. Interesting. Restrooms are right inside the visitor center. And after a quick stop, we're going to head back out and see the park, and then head up to the Elkhorn Ranch, which is the actual place. It's the middle of the two, the north and the south sections of the park. It's in the very middle, and it's about an hour drive from here on dirt roads. So we're going to see if we can get there. The Elkhorn Ranch was the actual place that he actually stayed. That was his sweet spot, if you will. So we just wanted to kind of check that out. So Let's take a look at the park, then we'll head up there. We left the visitor center and headed into the park. You're immediately met with just beautiful landscape and geology and canyons and small mountains. And after we stopped at the Skyline Vista Point, there you find the prairie dog metropolis. These little squeaky rodents run around and dart into their holes. There's also herds of wild horses that you'll see wandering around, and many other things like bison, and this old bison bull was just sitting on the side of the road chewing his cud and taking it easy. Our initial encounter was pretty impressive, so we continued on, and our next stop was the Peace Valley Ranch. This was an interesting place. It's been around a really long time. It was a ranch in the late 1800s and later became a dude ranch in the 1920s. Later, it became the headquarters of the CCC, the Conservation Corps, in the 1930s. Eventually, the park headquarters were here in the 50s and 60s, and later, they gave horseback rides and guided tours out of here. I can only imagine hanging out here and being a rancher. Well, we decided to continue on the Scenic Loop Drive, which is about 36 miles around on the South Unit Loop. And there's many places just to pull over and stop, many exhibits and just pull-outs. And I find it interesting to see all these formations and some valleys that are covered with grass and some mountains that are just dry. They have lots of trails that you can just take off these paths and exhibits that are well marked, and everything's in the brochures and at the park. So you can walk these trails and look at the wildflowers and the creatures and the animals. But we decided to move on to the Wind Canyon and see what was there. We've stopped here at the Wind Canyon Trail to take a little hike, and it's a easy half-mile round-trip little hike that should be interesting. What makes it unique is most of the canyons form from water cutting through the rock and the ground, but this Wind Canyon Trail demonstrates how wind carved out some of the canyons. So we're going to take a look at that and see what it's like. This is really an easy trail that you can just take your time on. And when you get to these vistas, you can see how the wind has eroded and carved out many of the areas along the trail. But by the time you get to the top, you'll just see these stunning, beautiful vistas, maybe even a beautiful place for a sunset as you look out over the Little Missouri River. It didn't take long at all to get to the top, especially at this speed, but you can certainly take your time. This is the Little Missouri River, and it is just absolutely beautiful. I don't know if you can see on the far side, on the other side of the river, just below the ridge, all the prairie dog mounds. The river comes around here and turns. Absolutely beautiful. This is one of the highlights of the Wind Canyon Trail, this view. It's really not that far from the parking lot, which you can see in the distance where we parked, and the trail just gradually slopes up this hill to the overlook where you're just met with this beautiful view of the Little Missouri River. And as you're walking back, you see beautiful berries and shrubs and other things like prickly pears and sagebrush. It's just a beautiful casual walk. We continued driving around the loop, just stopping at the pullouts. I think one of the interesting things here too is just the formations, the geological formations. It's unusual. It looks like a combination of mud and rock. This is just sort of the fringe of it, but just interesting how the water forms these little crevices. It just, I think, looks unusual. Pretty neat. Just a little over halfway around the loop, we decided to stop at another really popular place called Buck Hill. We're here at Buck Hill. This is the highest point in Theodore Roosevelt's National Park. So we're going to take a little climb up this hill and see what we can see. The wind here was ferocious. It was blowing so hard. I bet it was sustained winds of at least 40 miles an hour. But you could still see very far, and off in the distance were herds of buffalo that you can't really see on the video from here, but if you had your binoculars, you could see there were hundreds of them out. We're going to try walking the Coal Vein Nature Trail. It says about 45 minutes. See what's here? Another beautiful stop, just an easy trail to walk while you're here, just to see some more geology and different things. It's also the place you're supposed to see a lot of wild horses, so keep your eyes open. It's a really easy trail to walk. Pretty too. There's a lot of grasshoppers. I guess they've just about eaten all of these bushes, off the leaves off all these bushes, but so far we hadn't seen any horses. I guess this is the section that they actually call the coal vein, and you can see it, the darkest little strip just above, about the middle of this hill. We saw a sign back there. They have coal vein fires, where these veins actually catch on fire and you see smoke coming from them. What I liked about this trail too is it wasn't just the interest in geology with the coal veins, but it was just the cedar trees and all the plants and foliage, and just an easy walk, not tiring at all, and you could just leisurely take your time and just enjoy nature and the views. Really pretty, isn't it? It's so quiet and still. The park is so big, there's very few people here. At least there isn't today. You can see the animals here, the crickets, and it's just calm and peaceful. It's a really beautiful place. The Coal Vein Trail. You'll see signs for prairie rattlesnakes everywhere. Pay attention. I almost stepped on one sunning itself on the trail. Oh my God. Debbie. After my near heart attack from the prairie rattlesnake, we decided to head out of the south unit of the park and west on I-94 to exit 10, where we took a well-maintained dirt road up to the Elkhorn Ranch unit. I wanted to see where Teddy Roosevelt had actually stayed. Well, we made it to the Elkhorn Ranch. It's about an hour drive, about an hour and 10 minutes down a dirt road. Needless to say, you can see what my truck looks like. But this is where, I just wanted to come down here because this is where Teddy Roosevelt actually built his ranch. This was the sweet spot of the whole park that he wanted to stay. So we just wanted to come down here to see what it's like by the river where he actually lived. So we're going to go in and take a look. I think it's just about less than a mile there and back, so to the river. But you have to park, come down this dirt road, and there's parking here. You need maybe four-wheel drive some at the end, but not really. It's been real easy to get to. Any car, I think, could get here as long as it's not wet. This trail from the Elkhorn Ranch parking lot is really pretty nice. It's through these cedars, and the grass has been cut, maintained. Of course, it's a little dry here now, so there's not any mud. But I assume this goes down to the river where Teddy Roosevelt had his ranch, his cabin that they have a replica up at the visitor center. But it's a nice walk. It's cool, shaded. Lots of grasshoppers though, man. I've never seen this many grasshoppers. Well, this is it. This was an awesome trail to take. And they have a few signs down here. We're going to walk in to see where the foundation was. But he built his cabin. He called it Elkhorn because of two elks that were battling and left their antlers tangled together. They had died and tangled together in the spot where he built his cabin, and called it Elkhorn. But if you notice right here, what I thought was interesting is it shows his cabin, or his home that he built here. And then right beside it is the bank to the Little Missouri River. It's right next to his, and to me, if you walk over here, and I don't know if those cottonwoods are original or not, but his cabin or home was there in that fenced in area. And the bank would have been right beside it, which was, it looks like a river bank right along here, but the Little Missouri is way out there, probably about another 100 yards. So I wonder if the river Kind of looks flat and grassy out there. I wonder if the river moved from here over there in the last 150 years or however long it was. So I wonder about that. But definitely kind of really cool to come see, because you think about this. This is actually where Teddy Roosevelt found peace, solitude, strength to sustain his political career as president and all the things he'd go through. So we're going to take a look around in here. Just inside this little fenced-in gated area is where the home was actually built, and these are the foundation stones for the house. A two-roomed house that stayed warm in the winter. They had plenty to eat. All kind of duck, fowl, elk, deer, early days buffalo. But wow, when you think about it, this is actually where Teddy Roosevelt, out here, and I mean in the middle of nowhere. This was his house. And this was his view, nestled down here in this valley. And it was right along the river, which looks like it has moved out, the Little Missouri. That's so cool to think about. This is where Teddy Roosevelt lived in 1883. One of the Rough Riders. It's really cool. It's pretty big. Did want to mention that you need to be careful. This is open range country, so cattle just roam all the way across the roads without any fences. We decided to stop by the Painted Canyon Visitor Center. It also doubles as a rest stop, so it's a smaller visitor center. It's not the main visitor center, but it's more on the eastern side of the park. Let's just take a look around. It's still part of the southern section of the national park, but we decided to stop here just to look and see what's here, if there's a few more views to see, and maybe a restroom stop. But we'll take a look around here and see what there is. The Painted Canyon Visitor Center is one of the more accessible visitor centers in the park. It's located just right on I-94, a little bit more east of the southern part of the park, I would say. But it also serves as a rest area, so it's just right off the interstate. We stopped here. It has similar hours just to look around and see the views, get Debbie's stamp, and just check out some of the other things there. They have a few exhibits, of course, a gift shop with postcards and other things that you might want to buy, and other general information. And of course, the rangers are here to help you as well. We walked out of the back of the visitor center just to check the views. I guess that's the Painted Canyon. Quite a nice view from the visitor center if you just want to get an initial idea of what the park looks like from a distance. The clouds are just beautiful today too. The sky is just beautiful blue and those puffy clouds. Well, today we decided to spend our time discovering the north unit of the park. The park is so big that it took us a couple of days to explore everything. If you've already paid, your pass is still good for several days, so you won't need to pay again. We drove in from Dickinson, where we were staying. It's about a 30-minute drive from the east side of the park, and it was just cheaper to stay there instead of Medora. I would highly recommend staying in Medora because it's such a quaint, neat frontier town, but we just wanted to save a little money, and it offered us easy access to the north or the south part of the park. We stopped at the visitor center, which is right past the gate. It has the same hours, the 9 to 4:30, as the other visitor centers, but check the website. They have postcards and other things to buy, and the rangers are there and more than happy to give you more information. The northern unit doesn't have quite the facilities as the southern unit, but it's a little smaller visitor center, but the restrooms are located outside, so very convenient here. There's still plenty of information inside, and the ranger's great telling us what trails we could take. Unlike the south unit that has a loop around the inside, the north unit has a 14-mile drive into the park, and then it ends and you drive the same road coming back out. This is kind of an interesting little geological thing, but these tilted rocks, they're called, if you look over here to the left, you'll see how that hump or rock formation is turned on its side. All these across here are level, and then this one over here is turned on its side, or angled. It's because the little Missouri River flowed along there and they fell off. So at some point the river was right along here, through here, and these pieces just fell off and dropped down by the river. That's kind of neat. A lot of interesting geology here. The North Unit has many geological features to examine, and one of my favorites is coming up called the Cannonball Concretions. This was just a fascinating thing to see, and I discovered this is actually where aliens landed and learned how to bowl. Not really, I'm just kidding, of course. But what is interesting is how these formed. These cannonball structures were formed by dissolved minerals in the water. It would glue pieces of sand together, and these would grow, and eventually they were all buried. And as the water and from rain and wind erode these banks, then these giant cannonballs are exposed and they eventually just roll down the hill. I mean, where else are you going to see something like this? I mean, you learn something new every day, and I just thought this was so unusual and fascinating at the same time. This is a very popular place, and I would recommend trying to get there early. It's one of the earlier stops along the route across the Northern Unit. So just take your time here and enjoy it. It's a little shady here, and we were fortunate the weather was nice. It was clear and cool, so we could just spend some time here looking at the geology. It's just fascinating. You can see the shelves up above and other structures that are along there that the water has dissolved and washed out. But it's just beautiful looking over these overlooks, and fascinating to me that all of this is carved out. You can see these formations on the other side of this little ravine. The bank is this gray material. It's just some kind of mud that's like popcorn, crumbly gray popcorn mud. I guess it's formed from the rains, but it's kind of interesting. Here it is on this side of the road, but if you look at it, it's almost just like a crumbly, dried up pieces of mud. The banks are just covered in it, I guess from the rain. We're going to walk down to the River Bend Overlook. There's the Caprock Trail and the Ockibok Trail, but this is just a little overlook. We just decided we're not going to go as far as the River Bend. I think you go all the way down to the river and across, and we won't go that far. But this overlook is just supposed to be a breathtaking view, so let's take a look at that. Just what a fantastic view. This view alone is what really created the park. In the 1930s, the CCC camp built this little outpost just to stand here and enjoy the scenery, the views. This overlook was just incredible. That's what inspired Theodore Roosevelt National Park to become a park. This little outpost was built by the CCC in around 1937, I believe. It's a great place to look up the overview of the little Missouri Bend. Incredible. Get a little bit of shade. Right at the bottom of that gray butte that's sticking out, if you follow the edge of the butte down to the very bottom, there's a buffalo at the bottom just standing there. What a fantastic view. Little Missouri River Bend. This was fantastic, and this is a must stop along the route, so be sure you check this out. Well, this explains it. Bentonatic clay. It's that blue-black popcorn we were seeing earlier. It's a soil, clay soil that we were seeing earlier along the road. And this explains a little bit about it, but I don't know if you can see it. That grayish clay soil on tops of those peaks, and there's some even way in the distance horizon. But apparently it flows when it's wet and then dries up like popcorn. And don't know what it tastes like, but it goes along the Little Missouri River, and it's just a clay layer of soil within all these hills. So that's what it is. Still an interesting formation. Never seen it before. Well, we're at the very end of the drive for the Northern Unit Park. We're going to take a look around. There's plenty of parking here, as well as restroom facilities, and that's a relief, literally. And so it's mostly grasslands at the beginning, but boat trail, I believe it's about 2.5 miles round trip, about 1 mile in, 1 mile out. May take an hour and a half or something like that, but I think it's pretty easy. The Oxbow. There's some other trails that are a little more difficult, but it's supposed to be spectacular views. So we're going to check it out. Debbie's already left me, so you can see how all these bushes, the leaves are just stripped on them. That's from all those grasshoppers eating the leaves off. There's plenty to eat with all these grasshoppers. Well, only about 50 feet from the, oh, look at those flowers. Only about 50 feet from the parking lot is this beautiful vista. As you can see, it's just incredible. This is the Oxbow Overlook. You can see where the river, the Little Missouri River, kind of wraps around there, forms a loop, and right there where they're closest together will eventually fill in, and the river will change to that course, and this will be cut off. So we went up to look at the Oxbow Overlook, which we just saw, and now we're going to take this, I called it the Oxbow Trail, but it's really the Ockenbach Trail. However, we're just going to take this first little part to this point, which is what I was saying is 2.4 miles. We're just going to take the first part of this Ockenbach Trail and come back. That's where there's this beautiful scenic point here. The rest of the trail will be a little too difficult, so we're just going to go there and back and see what that looks like. There's a lot of evidence of buffalo. So, and we have seen them all the way through the drive here. We've seen several buffalo, but they've been off in the distance. Haven't seen any close, although there is evidence. Maybe we'll see some. Even though the trail is marked as moderate or semi-strenuous, I guess, we just really walked the very first part of it, which was quite easy. There wasn't hardly any hills at all, and we just took our time and strolled. Remember, though, that there's no shade, and you really need a hat or sunscreen, and make sure you take water always with you anytime you hike. It can get hot, and you don't want to get dehydrated. We finally reached the point of the overlook, the first overlook, and it was fantastic. Well, there it is. That's what about 1.2 mile hike in looks like. Oh my goodness. You can see over there, this is almost a better view than we were at before. You can see where the Little Missouri River forms this oxbow curve around here, and pretty soon those rivers will come together across that blend there, and the river will change course. I mean, this is just fantastic. Not a soul, not a sound but crickets. The strange thing about Bison is we just drove this road, we just came this way 30 minutes or about an hour ago, and there was nothing here. And on the way back, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, are hundreds of bison. So you just never know when or where they're going to appear. They move around quite often. Well, we stopped here at the campground. It's just a little ways into the park. We're actually on our way back from the end of the park, but we stopped here by the campground to take this little Mo nature trail. It's another old person's trail for us, but it's just a little trail. But it actually, they say, the park ranger said that it goes down to the Little Missouri River. So we haven't really been down actually to the riverbank yet, so we thought we'd go on this trail to see what this is like. This is a nice little paved trail. It's easy. She said, the park ranger said that this was one of the easiest, shortest trails they had. Just a fun, easy walk. Here's the beginning of the Little Mo Nature Trail, and it's just, the short loop is just 30 minutes, about less than a mile. We'll probably just take the short loop since it's the one that goes down to the riverbank or river overlook. We hadn't been that close to the Little Missouri yet, so we thought we'd take this one since it's so easy. And here's the campground. The campground actually looks really pretty nice, nice facilities. I think it'd be a great place to go camping. The views are nice. The facilities are nice, and the park is really nice. I love the north unit really better than the south unit. Here's a nice little shelter. I think it was around 1937 that the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, built some of these like shelters and little outposts, and that would be a neat place to hang out with a fire and some picnic tables and stuff if you were here camping. I love the shade. This is one of the few spots in the whole park in this northern unit that has shade. The cottonwoods all around the camping grounds. You can see the cottonwoods over there would provide some shelter shade from the wind too, and would be a great place to camp. Sometimes you just need to stop and look around, or you'll miss just some of the most beautiful flowers. Lots of berries. Won't be long till the color starts to change. Well, I guess this is it. There it is. This is the closest we've been to the Little Missouri. You know, in a way, this is just another diverse environment in our beautiful country. I mean, the national parks are just so incredibly different. And this is just another example of just how great they are. Those beautiful cottonwoods that you don't see in the rest of the country, and like Florida or anywhere else, and Everglades National Park and other places, canyons that you don't see anywhere else, and rivers and other animals and things that you just only find here. We just have a lot to be thankful for. Well, this concludes our tour of the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Hope you enjoyed this little video, maybe pick up a little ideas or tips and tricks. Yesterday we saw the south unit of the park and the Elkhorn part of the park, which is in the middle. Today we visited the north unit of the park, and I have to admit, I think I like the north unit better. There was lots to see. It's a great park, maybe not as popular, maybe not as many people visit this as some of the big ones, you know, Yellowstone and Yosemite and the others. But it's still, if you're in North Dakota, it's worth a stop. It's worth taking a look at the beautiful vistas, learn a little bit about the geology and the plant and foliage and the animals and all the things that are here. So North Dakota has a lot to offer in this park. So hope you enjoyed it, and catch us at the next national park.